Hi everyone, my name's Bria and welcome to the Lisa Stritt Creative Warrior Studio in Silverdale, Washington, home of Glassy Cuts. This studio is where glass art comes to life, whether you're here to watch the process or join one of our beginner-friendly DIY classes. Glassy Cuts was created here to make glass art accessible, and that's why we've designed easy-to-use projects. Project kits, I should say, with System 82, float glass, and recycled materials, perfect for artists at literally any level. Each project you'll see in these videos includes the use of System 82 since we believe it's the most reliable, affordable way to create stunning glass art without the high costs and complications of traditional art glass. Lisa Stritt has used these techniques for over 25 years in everything from large-scale installations to private commissions. And now we're sharing that expertise with you through these kits and tutorials. If you'd like to try yourself, you can find these project kits and more on www.glassycuts.com. So whether you're just starting out using glass for the first time or you're a glass guru yourself, I'm sure you'll learn something here with us today. So if you're ready to explore, let's get started. Let's go, fam. All right, so basically today we're gonna be starting off doing the kit for monarch butterflies. This is something that, again, if you want to purchase or you're interested in doing, you can go to glassycuts.com, but everything is included in this kit today. So what we're starting off with is a plain blank sheet of glass. This is our large butterfly size that we're going to be using. This is what we're going to start with, and the kit has all of the frick colors that you're going to need, whatever we're going to go through. I'm not going to go through those right now because I've got them in jars right here. So glass, colors, and then also you're going to have a stencil that you can cut out on your own. If you want to use an X-Acto knife, we totally recommend that. That's the best way to do this. But we already have a stencil that has already been cut out and made pretty for us, so I'm going to be using this. As you can see, we kind of got these tabs on here. That's better use for easy access on lifting off and whatnot, but I'll go over that in a little bit. So the kit has stencil, it's got the frit, it's got the butterfly, it's even got the magnet. So if you want to hang it on a wall or wherever, the mirror, so many different things. But the kit is online for you, and that's basically what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to teach you how to use that kit, how to make this butterfly, what we're doing with any of this. So basically, we like to start off with sheets of paper down first. I like to use 2 other white pieces of paper just because we want to try and save frit the best we can. So have something there for you. You can put the glass directly down if you want. I technically prefer having something underneath it that kind of helps to lift it off because I don't want to get my fingerprints on there. And also when it's full of stuff, it's just easier to lift off of something as opposed to from the ground. So find whatever you got at home. We use just lids from whatever, maybe use like a peanut butter jar lid or something. That could be useful. But yeah, we're going to start off with that. Definitely clean your glass before you do anything. Maybe that's broad knowledge, I'm not sure, but I'm going to make sure to tell you anyway. Front and back, we're going to clean that completely spotless. All right, so we have got these tools we're going to be working with. Hopefully you've got a sifter at home because these kits don't have them. All right, so we're going to be working with our sifter today. This is really the only tool you're going to need to use, to be quite honest. So hopefully you've got something like that at home. I also have this cone tool here. You don't have to have that. It's not necessary for this project necessarily. I like to do it to kind of fill in the gaps, and you'll see what I mean by that in a bit. But what we're going to start off doing today is we are going to be using, like I said, float glass in powdered form. We have all the different colors we got going on here for that butterfly. We're going to start from lightest color and then end with the darkest color we have. So in that kit, we've got canary yellow, we have orange nouveau, we have grenadine red, we have bright black, and we also have snow white giblets. And so basically the order in which we're going to be working this with is we're going to start by putting canary yellow down first. There's kind of a gradient that we've got going on in that monarch butterfly. And so the middle's kind of yellow, and it goes to orange, and then it goes to red, and then, of course, the stencil is used with black. So starting off with yellow, we're going to just go in the middle. So before I do anything, quick tap. That's just how we don't want to get any other colors mixed together, and that's just kind of a quick way to get rid of any excess that's left. I'm going to fill that up about halfway, and all you're going to be doing is you're going to take the sifter, you're going to hold it a little bit above, and you're going to tap just gently over, just like so. And like I said, this is mostly in the middle. We're going to do a gradient from middle out to the edges. So I'm going to fill that up. All right, that's really all I need. Let me show you what I mean. This is what I've got going on. Oh, float glass. This is a fun thing to note. You can tilt it and it really won't come off. If I were to go 90 degrees, of course it would slide off. But that's something cool about float glass as opposed to like any of the other art glass systems. That's definitely very airy and very easy to like blow it off or whatnot. But float glass 82s tends to stay on pretty well, which is kind of a big deal if we're being honest. All right, remember what I said about using the paper to save frit? Especially with the packs you're going to be getting, saving frit is going to be very useful. So we're going to dump it off and dump it right back in. Quick little shake off, and we're going to bring that dude back. All right, so that was really all I needed for that first layer, is just that middle. We're going to move on to the orange. Basically what we're doing with the colors is we're working from the lightest color on the bottom and then working our way to the darkest color. So what I mean by that is we've got all of these colors we're working with right now. This is the first one I just put down. I'm going to then layer the orange on top, then that grenadine, and then black is the absolute last color we're going to put on that because it is the darkest. And we do that because if I were to start with the darkest color and then put all those colors on top, essentially we would lose all those colors. So this order, this, this, this. Whereas if I started with something dark, lost all those other colors. So that's something fun to learn. But we're going to move on to that orange. All right. So I put it in the middle. We are now going to just quickly tap off. I don't know if you saw there's a huge cloud of dust that we just did. All right. Fill it up about halfway again. Now we're going to leave the middle open for the yellow so we can see that yellow coming in, but we're going to cover the rest of the butterfly with the orange now. So we're going to kind of, I guess, leave that body to be yellow, but then we're going to kind of arc our way around it. So like this. And now the rest of this butterfly is going to have that orange all over here and all over on this side. Arc around the middle, up to the wings. All right. And for those of you who don't really know, hey, did I put enough frit down? Was this enough? Is this too much? This is kind of how we gauge that. So when I'm done sifting, I'm going to lift this up and like hold it to the light. And remember, it likes to stay, so don't be super anxious. I'm going to hold it to the light. I know you can't see this. I wish I could show you. But if you can see light coming through, then it's not heavy enough. There's a little bit on this wing. I can see some light. It's speckly. So I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to go right back over that again. It'll be pretty clear for you at home if you were to do that and check. It's like a speckly light mess. I don't know how else to put that. But you'll know. And if not, you can also kind of bend over, look at the sides, and you want like a medium layer over everything. You can kind of see where it divots or whatnot, and that'll give you a good indication as to how good your coat is. When you fire it in the kiln, generally any kind of divots or waves will go flat. So you don't really need to worry about whether or not if it's even layered, if that's going to be an issue. It'll level out. It'll just kind of, I guess the color will be a little more saturated, let's put it that way, if you have a mound of frit or something. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, moving on to the next color. So I've got that orange on the sides, the yellow in the middle. You can kind of see it. I mean, I know the colors are all pretty much the same, but it'll look different when you fire it, I promise. All right, we're gonna move on to grenadine. Sorry, all the colors, they look like it's just white powder or something gray or a little yellow. That is not how it's going to end up being, I promise. Like I said, these are actually the true colors of what we got going on after they've been fired. So never trust the frit color. Always do a fired color. All right. We're now going to fill this up about halfway with grenadine. Same thing, except now we're going to keep to the edges or the tips of the wings. So we're just going to start from the bottom here, along the side, and kind of just border it. So start at the top a little and follow just the edges. We don't want to go too far in and come over that orange. We're just going to do the edges here. And right around here. All right, I wish I could show you this, but again, this is a very faint colored frit. So we've got white on top of mild yellow. So it's hard to see, but just around the edges, if you look at the sample that we have on there, the color, you can kind of see that it's a gradient of red to orange to yellow. So just think gradient. That's all we're trying to do here. All right, same thing. All right, this is where it starts to get a little tricky. We're now moving on to the stencil. This is where people tend to get a bit intimidated, but I promise it is not super complicated. It is very delicate, yes. We're just going to gently lay it down. We're not going to worry too much about, I guess, technique of that. It's really just find wherever is the most comfortable. I kind of will either use the tabs or kind of balance it out, holding my hand like so with my fingers kind of propped under here and pinched up here. Because I'm going to be laying it down like this, and I don't want to plop it because then all that frit's going to just poof out. So we're going to be gently laying it down. And so what that kind of looks like, we'll use the paper for an example. What that looks like is I am going all the way. I could probably use my pinkies even to kind of help brace against it and gently lay it down. Kind of like that. That's kind of a good way of doing it. We're just trying to disturb the frit the absolute least amount we possibly can. As long as you're not plopping it, I think you'll be okay. But we really don't want to be moving that stencil anymore after we put it down. Because once it's down, if you move that, it'll slide the frit and it'll create stretches, so we're trying to avoid that. All right, let's do this. Gently lay it down. Like so. Cool. All right, stencil's down. We are now using bright black. Same thing, same tool, quick tap. My only thing now is when we're doing this, for your base layer, go a little bit heavier than you think you would. But when you're using a stencil, we're going to actually put the frit on a lot lighter than the original base coat. And what I mean by that is I still want to be able to see the stencil while I'm doing this, and I'll show you what I mean, but we're just going to very lightly be tapping all over the stencil. I want to still be able to see the stencil while I'm doing this, because if I put too much down, it's going to mound up in one area, and it'll be really hard, first of all, to take that off because it's a delicate stencil and it'll weigh it down, and it could drag the stencil down and then drag all that frit off. So what I mean by wanting to still see the stencil is this could drown out everything and you'd lose track. You could test it if you wanted to. Actually, if you don't feel comfortable mixing everything yet or doing the stencil, it's perfectly fine to put the stencil down, practice on the sheet of paper so that you're not getting it on top of the frit and mixing things if you're not quite as confident. That's something that we could totally have done. But yeah, on the paper, do a light coating on top. Want to still be able to see that stencil. I'm going to try and show you what I mean by that. See how the stencil is still coming through? There's nothing that's kind of moving that. Nope, can't do that. All right, just a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to take this stencil off. We're going to take it off the same way we put it down, which is really gently, delicately, no plopping, no aggressive movements. All right. You can use the tabs, you can use my technique, it is up to you. I'm going to just gently lift it off, put it to the side. Voila. This is what we got going on. All right, so this is why I have that pencil tool now. You can kind of see there are some gaps in there. That is up to you. This is perfectly fine the way it is, honestly. And that's exactly the picture we've got on the box, actually, is this is the final result minus the giblets we're about to do. But if you have something smaller like the pencil writer tool, you can go in and kind of fill those gaps, make a complete black border if you wanted to. That is totally up to you, but the stencil is as it is. It's totally fine. It looks amazing either way, but it depends on your orientation to detail. You know, if you prefer something very, very specifically Monarch, then I guess realistically Monarch, then I recommend using a different tool to kind of fill in those gaps. If not, this is also very realistic in its own way. Artistically realistic. So now we're going to move this off. We're going to move on to the last step. We're going to add those giblets. As you can see kind of on that picture, there are these white chunks that we've got kind of on the border for the speckles that are on Monarchs. And how we do that is by using a different grain size. So all of this is technically grain size 0. We are now going to switch to a grain size 4, which, if you can look here, it's kind of, you can use your fingers for this. They're a lot chunkier. They come out like raindrops. Actually, that's a good size. Raindrop frit. And that's what we're going to be doing. So if you want it to be a little more precise, you can use tweezers now. You can go in, maybe take a little bit in your hand or in your palm, grab some tweezers and be very specific. I kind of like the more organic version of this, where you kind of take a pinch, and all you're going to be doing is kind of just on the edges, placing them in a random organic order. And kind of like where you put the grenadine, that's where you're really bordering with the giblets. I mean, it's up to you. This is your project. If you want it to be speckled everywhere, that is your prerogative. This is just how it looks on the box, I suppose. This is what we're trying to do. But do whatever you really want to do. This is your artistic expression. If you're like, I would also like to give it eyes, you can use giblets for eyes. It's a fun time. And this is the final product. Of course, not the final. We gotta fire it and the can will look different. But this is what we've got going on. We've got giblets on the border now, right along here. Oh no. And that is how you make a monarch butterfly using our kit that we've got going on. This is obviously not the final result, as you need to fire them and then you'll get those colors you're looking for. So this is actually the final result. As you can see, blah, blah, blah. So this is the gradient I was talking about, that yellow in the middle, then the orange, and then I did the red right like this, just along here. Up, bloop, and down and around. Same with those giblets. You want to come in from about here and keep it on the sides. But again, that is up to you and however you would like to make this. But yellow to orange to red, and then that black on top. Finished with those snow white giblets. And then we also gave you a magnet in that pack. So this is kind of how it looks at the end with the magnet. There's also a magnet back. You can screw that into a wall and then use that to put it up against there. Whatever glass glue that you're comfortable with, use that. As long as it's tightly secured, definitely let it cure for about 24 hours before you try and mount it on the wall. And be careful putting it on. These are strong magnets. I recommend bracing it on either side when you're putting it down, and it tends to snap real easily. Whichever technique works for you, but just know that it's strong and it'll snap, and we want to try and go as delicately as we can. But yeah, that's the monarch butterfly. Thank you all for, first of all, coming to find us, looking at our website, and purchasing this kit if you did in fact purchase it. If not, I hope you do. It's a really fun time, very beginner friendly. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you had fun. You learned something new, something educational, and from the Glassy gals to you, have a great rest of your day.
I think we should include that.